trying to sing the choir that they were probably believe. But, I didn't do all that stuff. But I went to church, and all of a sudden, they hated Jimmy Carter. And it's like, you hate Jimmy Carter? And this was like the second or third year, and really it was when he was running against Reagan, so it was like I left Baton Rouge in 78. So, the next summer the election was going on, and they hated Jimmy Carter. Loved Ronald Reagan. Hated Jimmy Carter. It's like, but you loved Jimmy Carter 3 years ago. Why do you hate Jimmy Carter? Well, Willie Nelson is why they hated Jimmy Carter. He was smoking dope in the Capitol and the White House, and Jimmy Carter had turned into a liberal. And all the religion, and it's like, and Ronald Reagan was not. And this is, again, where the religious framing comes in. Political science works very closely with Mass Comm. They give us a lot of money, so I use a lot of Mass Comm terms these days, and framing is one of them. I love it. But, so religious framing, in other words, defining political terms. Framing is such a good word. I don't really know what it means, but it sounds like So Ronald Reagan had, more than most folks, most politicians, had really transformed Southern politics a little more completely. I mean, Strom Thurmond opened the door, Barry Goldwater, but Ronald Reagan's campaign was able to frame the partisan alignment in values/religious terms. And the reason I connected with religion is because it was religion to me. It was the church that framed it that way. And it's like, no longer is it the New Deal alignment. It's a different kind of, whereas economic populism would appeal to it. It was a cultural populism in religious terms. I suspect not the religious terms of the church that this represents, but the religious terms of many Southern churches, especially Southern Baptist churches, and that's where the Louisiana change is so interesting, because Louisiana has other influences, Catholic influences. So I realized then that the transformation, that the Republican dilemma had been solved, and actually solved quite effectively for 30 years, until about now, But it had been solved. It's like, running as economic populists, it was interesting. It was great, actually, politically, living in Louisiana, because it's like, if a Louisiana politician can neutralize the cultural issues and just run as an economic populist, if a Louisiana Democrat can neutralize a Democrat can win and could win. It's a little easier to do in Louisiana than other places in the Deep South. Louisiana win. So what we saw is the Republican dilemma solved. What I am loath to do, and I mean loath to do, I don't mean that Republican opposition to civil rights, which let white Southerners in, is in any way the same as this religious frame cultural values. All I mean is that appealed to the same group of people that had to be appealed to for Republicans to keep winning in the South. I'm saying it was reframed. I'm not saying that Southern Baptist cultural conservatism is racist. I am not, but people imply that. That's why I'm saying that so specifically. I am not at all saying that. I'm saying that it was reframed, and it appears to have been reframed. You need to appeal to these working class Southern white people on something other than economics. Darn it, we got them on opposition to civil rights. We want to do that. Let's let's do something else that feels right. And what felt right was family values and all that stuff. And that's a religious frame. I mean, that's it might not be your church. I don't know that much about your church. but it might not be your church's religious frame, but that is a religious frame. I mean, that's, and you know, the Southern Baptist Convention and all that, all of a sudden became very important in the rise of the right in the South. And really, if we do look at the transformation of Southern politics, of American politics, and I am convinced by this, if you look at the numbers, the move from the sort of working Democratic majorities in the mid to late 20th century to the Republican, you look at the South. I mean, that's where it happened, and that's where you get them. I mean, I use all these numbers that Lauren, who was in my Southern politics class, won't remember, but there were 0 Southern senators that were Republicans, 0 governors, 2 out of 122 during World War II, and then you get to 2000, huge majority. I mean, you barely find something. It's odd that Mary Landrieu appears to be someone who's going to get reelected, and she just got kind of lucky in this whole environment because she seems like she would be very vulnerable. I mean, there are 3, 4, 5 Democrats in the South who, look in the Senate, look like they're going to survive. And so when I look superficially, voting behavior and things like that in American politics, and someone asked me, how does religion, how has it affected contemporary American politics? It's like, well, it defined the transformation of American politics because it defined the lasting transformation of Southern politics. Because the transformation of American politics, I am convinced, and I'm in a solid majority, the transformation of Southern politics is what transformed American politics. And the words, the values words and those sorts of things that transformed the opening of the Republican Party in the white working class South, and that's really what we're talking about. Although, I want to take, the opening was race, opposition, civil rights, and voting rights act. I also want to just make clear, not to get all of us middle and upper middle class, I'll distinctly middle if you look at my public salary, but racism isn't confined to working class people. I know that. In fact, there's a lot of great research showing that suburban and upper middle class racism is as alive and well as working class racism. I'm not saying that, but the working class racism that was the opening for opposition to leaving the Democratic Party and briefly for the Republican Party was simply that, was an opening. And it was the religious words that allowed the Republican Party to begin to dominate in the South. What's going on now is fascinating. Want me to run another how long? 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes, so we can